Welcome to Valentine's Day tutorial. And last year we did this strawberry, which was very juicy and chocolate. This year I decided to go symbolic, heart, and chocolate. Outline is done, which you can download. And with an elastic eraser, removing excess amount of graphite of the paper surface. Carefully, that all lines are there, but they're very light. You don't see them so clearly in camera, but I can see them in real life. That's how light they should be. And with this subject, it's important to have all these shiny parts outlined, so we stick to them. They are in these places not just randomly, they are representing also shape of the subject. This, for example, big shiny spot is where the heart is most thicker, and it's where the sun light source is hitting surface. This one as well is showing the shape of the heart, the shiny area. It's more like reflected light area, and of course all the little details. They are all important. Don't try to skip them or paint them randomly. They all have meaning why they are there. Before we are starting to paint, we need to mix watercolors for this project. I'm using my Watercolor Mixing Notebook. Have already here different notes, and this will be for the heart. Adding water to mixing palette using round synthetic brush. Don't use your finest brushes for mixing watercolors. And for this project, I will be using all reds in my palette and also yellows because this heart is very warm red. So lemon yellow definitely will be used. Indian yellow. I'm placing Indian yellow already in on my palette. Cenelia red. Mixing together Indian yellow and Cenelia red. Alizarin crimson, which is red but cool temperature red. Perlin maroon. Perlin violet. Then for the browns will be primaries yellow, red, and blue, and also green. And ultramarine blue as well. Now for the reds, I will be using alizarin crimson. A little bit more of alizarin crimson, and to alizarin crimson I am adding Indian yellow. This is now really rich red. I'm painting it out here. Now I see that it's too yellowish. I will add more alizarin crimson. And also a little touch of perlin violet. Painting out again. Now for the next one, I want to take Cenelia red. And to Cenelia red, I'm adding alizarin crimson. Painting out. This is more for the half tones. And even the darkest mix will be perlin violet. A little bit more. With, let's say, Cenelia red. Even perlin maroon would be nice. Painting out. Yes, and if I needed to make it a little bit darker, I will add more layers or pearl and maroon. Now for the chocolate part, I am taking, I'm taking lemon yellow, a little bit more of lemon yellow, adding alizarin crimson. Remember to experiment with pigments you already have. A little bit of water, more alizarin crimson. And I will add ultramarine blue. Now this is more like too yellowish and reddish brown, so I will add more ultramarine blue and more alizarin crimson. A little bit more blue, adjusting, painting out. This is good for somewhere. This color is good for half tones. It's not great for the darkest ones, but for the first layer this will be enough. I will be using this one. To make it darker, I will later on mix more and add pearl and violet, but for now I'm using this one. And of course writing down pigment names, which mix went where. This was alizarin crimson plus Indian yellow. This was alizarin crimson plus Indian yellow and plus pearl and violet. This is Sennelier red with alizarin crimson, and this is pearl and violet plus Sennelier red. And these are primaries: lemon yellow, alizarin crimson, and ultramarine blue. These notes are important for practice, for remembrance of pigment names, for record of the mixes you are using, and maybe you will take a break, and when you come back you have your notes. You can write them on a separate piece of paper. When I have a bigger project, like for the book, I was using little samples of paper, and that's where I was also writing pigment names, mixes, so I know what was used when and to which project. Watercolors are ready. Heart is also outlined ready, and first layers starting very slowly, transparently, and paint. First I will paint in red area of the heart, and then first layer for the chocolate part. Be sure that your wash is clean after mixing. Wash your brush thoroughly, and also using round synthetic brush. Applying water only on the red surface. Do not go into brown area, only red area. Water is applied for the red area, and I'm lifting, you see I don't have puddles. Water, and using Sennelier red with alizarin crimson, and with Godspeed we are on. Smoothly applying watercolors, moving quite fast. We need to cover this whole area. Now washing my brush, cleaning in paper towel, and wiping till the outer edges. I'm leaving this shiny area unpainted, but I will glaze over it with very light amount of watercolors. And the outer part should be very fluffy. If you take a pause and after finishing this layer or before even starting, there's a fluffy edge. There's no crisp edge there. A little bit more darker definitely can go here. And there's reflected light area. Carefully around the pushing watercolors to the brown area. This first layer will not be perfect. This is a wide area to cover. Paintings, trying to make this layer as smooth as possible, leaving this little gap out. A little bit more watercolors here and there. While the surface is wet, I'm adding a little bit more. Leaving as it is. Moving to the next one, which is here. Taking watercolors, starting from shadow area, which is under, down. Here we have a very narrow gap between chocolate and heart edge. Sometimes when it's very precise areas, it's hard to concentrate for painting and talking, but doing my best. And I'm smoothing this edge for the lighter part, the shiny part. And here we have little corner. I'm taking watercolors without watering surface under. There's also little shiny spot. And I am avoiding that. Using tip of the brush, you can take a finer brush here. And slightly blending. So there are no crisp edges. And that's it for the round area, for the heart area. Now moving on to the chocolate part. This edge is dry, so I'm ready to paint. And first, water. Remember, water is just enough so watercolors can be moved, no puddles. Careful, do not go all over the lines. Taking watercolors and starting to apply maybe a little bit too much water. If it goes so fast, it means that there's a little bit too much water. And applying this light brown watercolor mix. Careful, do not go into the heart area. This area will be very dark, so even if you have uneven area that you are covering, no worries. It will cover with many layers that will be coming. Carefully going around. Checking reference photo as well as I paint, because there are areas that I need to consider. And going here. Carefully. Now my watercolors are blended into this shiny spot, and I can wipe this area. It's still not quite white. And painting around that shiny area. Pushing watercolors to the outer parts. Carefully, carefully. More precision will be later. Now my shiny area have some color in it, so I'm wiping with clean and dry brush. And a little bit finishing. Leaving a little gap that we see, and we outlined, leaving it out. And also I'm leaving here a little line, a little edge. I see that in reference photo. A little bit darker is outer edge, so I'm adding a little bit more watercolors there. Like this. Here, removing with clean and dry brush. I'm smoothing so there are no sharp edges in my shiny area. And shiny area would be better to be left wider, unpainted. We can later on add more. And now we need to add here. I'm adding a little bit of water. And starting moving on. Shiny areas is all about contrast, so we will be adding more layers, definitely more. And with clean and dry brush, wiping out this shiny part. This one, there's a little bit of here. But that is much lighter, but I'm wiping it out as well. And checking these parts here. I have here a little area that I need to wipe out. There was a little square here that will be wiped out. Checking if I have everything if all the necessary. Here we had a lighter reflected light area, but I am not worried at this moment that it's painted over, because it will be in this color and everything else around will go much darker. I'm trying to wipe out a little bit. So this is for the first layer. Our heart looks like this. We have some darker areas, some definitely lighter areas, half tones, shiny areas, and it's already looks with a little bit of volume. It doesn't look realistic and close to a reference photo, but that's okay. This is just the first layer. So now I will wait a few minutes to this whole area to dry completely, and then we can continue. Everything is dry and paper is straight. It was a little bit bubbled in the after this watery first layers, and now paper is straight. It means it's completely dry and we're ready to paint further. So this is the part which is the darkest for the heart. Starts from upper part, goes here. Only there is a line of reflected light area which will be left lighter. Then there are some shiny reflected light areas, and we have half tones here, and then lightest area is here with a little bit shadow here, and this one is light, leaving this area unpainted, this area unpainted, this little. So we will be working on the red one. I will take a little bit of this mix that we have, which was alizarin crimson, Indian yellow, and a touch of pearl and violet. And you can have again the same mixing notebook or other spare piece of paper, and before going to you check how dark or how light this is. So don't go with dark watercolor mixes. We need to go light. It's a little bit tricky here, but we will see how it will go. And I'm using round synthetic brush, applying smooth, long lines in between the area where we have this big shiny part. And it starts on the upper part. Goes down. I see in reference photo there are two lines here. I'm not sure that I'm gonna do two lines. They're very close to each other. Like this. Now these areas are way too light compared to the reference, but let it be that way. We can always make something darker. Then this lower part here is also darker, and the surface on which I'm working is dry. And then there's shadow under chocolate. Now washing my brush, cleaning in paper towel, and I want to have this transition smooth. There's little corner that is light, taking a little bit more of this color. And again, smoothing. Then area behind this. Now it looks, as we added next layer, it looks much lighter and brighter just because of the contrast. We will later on paint, apply layer there, so no need to worry now. And painting further. Blending applied layer. More transparently moving forward, close to the chocolate. There are no white gaps there. And blending. To get smooth layer as possible, smoother as possible. Moving right to this shiny part and painting around and blending. Now we see more clearly shiny spots. 1, 2, 3, and here we have, there is an outer line and the gap for reflected light area. There's also a line of much darker color right behind that reflected light area. So I'm adding another brush stroke there. This is the darkest part of the heart. Like this. And also down where we have the shadow part and lower part of the heart, which is darkest. Washing my brush, drying in paper towel, and blending, so we have the gradual transition. Now this one here, applying another layer on the dry surface. Washing brush, and I want to smooth this transition. It's not crisp. This transition here is not crisp. We can overpaint this area like this. And the lower part has also a little bit of shadow behind that area where the chocolate is, casting shadow on the heart. Like this. Now this area, if you look closer, you will notice that there's a little bit of darker area on the outer part. and then it becomes lighter. Painting here lightly and transparently. Like this. Now we have more precise areas for these shiny parts. Now need to move on to the chocolate part. Still using same mix that we mixed with primaries. And I will go now around this shiny spot. Checking reference as well. We have there multiple areas to paint. Painting on a dry surface. Looking constantly for guidances. This little part here. Leaving unpainted. And continuing. Concentration is to the top. To have lines. Lines are very straight and crisp. They are curved, but they are, they are straight. They're no wavy. There's no some wiggly forms. And closer to this shiny spot, the area is darker. See also what we have here on the other side. Here's a little bit of tricky area. It's hard to notice that lighter shiny spot. I will try to get it right as close as possible. We can have little adjustments, of course, but just don't lose the form of where they are. Now I need to mix again watercolors, so primaries that I was using. I was using lemon yellow, alizarin crimson, a little bit more of alizarin crimson. Now ultramarine blue. It's becoming a little bit too violety, meaning I need to add yellow. More ultramarine. More alizarin crimson to get richness. More ultramarine. Now it's again going a little bit more violety, meaning too much reds and blues. Adding yellow. And continuing. Don't be afraid to run out of watercolor mixes. You can mix again, and if the color tone will be slightly different, no worries. Your painting will benefit from it. Trust me. And going here, we have a darker line on the outer part. goes like this. And with a little tail here. Then we have more here. It's dry now. And it goes here. Trying to locate my outlines as well. This chocolate drop really needs to go super tasty. And a little bit behind that shiny area. And here. And then it's behind it. There's also darkness. It's very thin. And painting this all part darker, leaving little gap between chocolate. It's not a gap, it's a shiny, very shiny line on the chocolate. It's not a gap. Like this. Need more layers here. And leaving a little shiny spot here as well. This is not the darkest mix for the chocolate, but it's okay for this second layer. So we are getting in place shiny parts and darker parts, so we are not losing them. There's a darker line here as well, leaving gap for the halftone light. Then we need to make this line a little bit darker with next layer of the same watercolor mix in order to paint around it slightly lighter. Then we have darker area here on top. And as well as here. Okay, this is for the chocolate part. We have some, I need a little bit here. This is where this finishes and becomes darker. It is tricky in the beginning when we are concentrating on these shiny spots and not on how smoothly it all goes, trying to be as smooth as possible. If I would water first, then it would be hard to get such crisp edges, what we need right now. And yeah, I think it's okay for the second layer, and I will let it dry again a few minutes and then continue for the third layer. It's dry and we are ready to paint further. Now painting a little bit with wider brush strokes. That will help us create layers more smoother. Washing brush, cleaning in paper towel, smoothing applied layer. Building layers. I want to add a little bit of mix where we had Indian yellow to my Sennelier mix. Going with wider brush strokes. My brush is on the side. You can use bigger brush here. I'm not using finer to brush, maybe closer to finish. I will use finer to brush for final details, some corrections. Now I'm completely happy with how this bigger brush is painting. Now like this, and going a little bit darker with the shadow area. Now painting a little bit more bolder with darker brush strokes. Using a touch of Perlin Violet with Perlin Maroon. Need more darkness in the upper part here, which goes down and a little bit on top. Wash my brush, clean it in paper towel, and blending. So need a little bit darker edge right behind this light part. And smoothing carefully, not too hard, with few brush strokes. We don't want, if we will go again and again, we will wipe the surface. Taking a little bit of this yellowish mix to this part as well. And going a little bit darker on the lower part, where we need to get volume for this heart as well. We need to think about these shiny areas and also volume. This heart needs more volume. This part is painted very lightly. I'm not losing lightness of this place. Like this. And now to the brown area as well, moving. Bolder, bigger brush strokes. And applying layers. Carefully, do not go over the line. Adding more watercolors, more layers. We need to build intensity now. Our first concern was the shiny areas, if we have them all. Now we have them, we are building intensity. Oops, went over the edge. So what I will do, I will make this chocolate drop a little bit bigger. So I need to move it slightly larger. Happy little accidents. Okay, like this. Carefully painting. And continuing. These lines need to be without any wiggles, without any waves. Now my watercolor mix again is finished. So this time I will try to mix something more intense and darker. So for that I'm taking again lemon yellow. A little bit more of lemon yellow. Perlin violet. Need more perlin violet. More perlin violet. It's already very dark and intense. And I will add ultramarine blue. Painting out on a piece of paper. And it's very close, I need it darker. So I will add more ultramarine blue. Even more. And more perlin violet. Testing. It's darker and I will use it. Maybe I will add a little touch of lemon yellow to make it slightly warmer. It's very dark gray. I need it more chocolatey, so I'm adding more lemon yellow. Testing again. It's almost black. It's almost black, so this will be for the areas that needs more darkness, and this is definitely this area. With a little tail here. Dark. Then it is dark here. And it's thinner in the beginning, and then it becomes wider. It's definitely dark in this curved area. Carefully painting around hard part. It's dark here, there's a darker line here. And then it's dark here. And we have another pigment to push it even darker, which is indigo, but that will be used much later if it will be needed. There's another line here. It's also darker closer to here. And then it becomes lighter. And it's darker here. And it's important to stay in those lines. Washing my brush and smoothing the edge of applied watercolors. Now I need to build intensity here as well. And on the lower part of this drop, and here closer to the edge where we have a shadow. Like this, building darkness. It's also darker closer to this. And smoothing. Now we will rest the chocolate to get dry and work more on the heart. I want to do a glaze of this mix, which is alizarin crimson and Indian yellow. Adding more water. I see that in the middle it's more yellowish, so I'm putting my brush on the side. And I'm glazing this color. Glazes also even out layers underneath. They're making more smoother layers, more even. Now taking Sennelier red and applying layers around the shiny area. And also smoothing. More darkness. We need more darkness there. Remember that we have there reflected light area, which is left for now, unpainted. Building shadow. Also, we'll do a glaze of yellow here. This heart is one hole and we can't do glaze in one place and leave other different. And smoothing this edge so it's not crisp. It's not entirely crisp. This one should also be a little bit smoother. With clean and dry brush, I'm going over this edge to make it slightly less crispier. Better like this. And also here, a layer of transparent watercolors here as well. A little bit darker line on the outer edge. Now the chocolate part is dry and I want to add layers there. Also putting my brush on the side so my brush strokes are smoother. If your layer is not dry, wait. On the inner part, not on the inner part, when I'm doing this curved arch, closer to the shiny part, it's where it is darker. We need to have their tonal values in order to have this curve look three-dimensional, not just flat. Need darkness here. Paint only if your layer is dry. I'm painting because my layer is dry. Another smooth layer here. Painting further. Pushing watercolors further. Washing my brush and smoothing this part. Now I'll wait a few moments for this all to dry and then I will glaze over the ones that are super standing out are these sections, some here sections which are very light but shouldn't be so light. Everything is dry and using again round synthetic brush, adding water to Sennelier red and alizarin crimson mix to make it very diluted with water, and with loading my brush fully, I'm glazing over these areas. And as we instantly add this glaze of color, it goes calmer. And I will also glaze over the reflected light area. It's not as dark as it is in the reference, but I find it too light in a reference photo. It seems like there was two light sources to take this photo. So I'm also glazing over reflected light area. Now I will add more here watercolors. I need to make this area slightly darker. This lower part needs to go darker in order to make it look realistic and round. it looks more rounder now. I want to also do a glaze here. And a glaze over here. Now this is the lightest of all red hard shiny parts, and now I want to do glaze in some chocolate parts. So I'm also diluting with water, and I will glaze. Start from this one here. It's too obvious bright. It shouldn't be so bright. And also over here, continuing with the glaze over here. This one is also slightly darker, so I'm glazing here as well. And a very light touch of this very light gray I will do here inside this shiny spot. There, if you take a closer look, you will see that there are some parts of gray color. Washing my brush, cleaning in paper towel and smoothing. So there are no, here we don't have any crisp edges. Smoothing with a dry and clean brush. Also, I will glaze here this white edge. It's not as white. Also here I have a little edge there as well. And I will add a very light glaze here as well. Not entirely, leaving a little bit unpainted, like this. Now it looks more calmer, and though this one is dry now, I will go again. I will do another glaze there because it's still very light. So I'm going with another glaze of transparent watercolors. This one as well. This one is even darker. I need to go and make it darker, like this. And I'm not worried that my edges are becoming a little bit more fluffier because they're not entirely crisp in the reference as well. I will do another layer here. Watercolors. And another layer here, watercolors. More darkness in the lower part. This is dry also. I will take this darker mix, what we have, place it here, so it's not so intense. Add layer, push it down. I need more there, more darkness on this lower part of the heart to make it rounder. And glaze. Another layer. And smooth. This part is dry. Need more darkness here and behind. Another layer, transparent watercolors on top. Adding more darkness behind here, even way darker. Need to push my darks even way darker. And this shadow part and the lower part of the heart. Now I want to do another glaze over this part. Need to make it even darker. And I want to do a glaze over the reflected light area, which is on the outer edge. And another layer here. And as I go back to the area right now, this one, it's dry already, completely dry. A little bit more here. Precision with edges. And I'm still, no matter how long I paint, I constantly check with reference. Now I see that I need more shadow on this upper part here. More precise, this edge of where the chocolate touches the surface of the heart. Like this. And the edge right before the shiny part is even way darker. So I'm adding another line down. Pushing my darks. And now I see that this one can do another glaze, but I will wait for this area to dry. I'm taking Indian Yellow to my Sennelier Red and Alizarin Crimson. This one is dry. I want to do here a glaze. My brush is on the side so that my brush strokes are wide and smooth. And the surface becomes more softer. Now we need to work a little bit more on chocolate, definitely. So now I want to do a glaze here using the mix that we have. So I'm glazing over the darker part and lighter part. Oops, carefully not to go over the outlines. This happens to me as well. That's why I'm always reminding you that, because I know this is happening constantly. And as I'm glazing over the whole area, I'm giving extra layer. I'm not entirely painting everything. Not everything is covered, sorry. I'm painting entirely everything, but I have visible through the differences between the lighter and darker areas, because I already established them underneath. Like this. We can see that there's darker line there. And it is especially darker closer to this, looks like horse to me. This shiny spot. It's a little bit curved. Try to make those more darkness. Adding pearl and violet. And I want to have more darker on this curve as I go down. More layers are added, more shinier, more chocolatey it looks. Going here. Carefully. Adding layers of watercolors. Then we have a little bit more precision required here. I will add some random lines. Not like entirely random, but I'm following what is happening in reference, but I will add some lines here because this is the part that's a little bit tricky. There are different darker, lighter lines, so I'm adding them freer than not so precise with reference, like this. I think I need a little bit of glaze here to make this part a little bit darker, not so light. It needs to have a little bit more color to it, then it looks more in the shadow. Yes, now it's better. It's calmer. That edge is calmer. Then also this one needs to have a little bit of glaze. So why I call these areas glazes, what I'm doing right now, because I'm painting transparently, I'm glazing, and after drying, we will still see the difference where it is lighter and where it is darker. Now my red part is dry. And I want to add glaze over this one here. It becomes much calmer. I want to add a glaze over this area as well. And it instantly looks rounder because this is not entirely the light area. This is the lightest area, which also needs a little bit of glaze. Very light glaze here, like this, and here as well. A little bit lighter. Washing my brush, cleaning in paper towel, and smoothing. Also this one here needs to go a little bit darker, like this. And horse, I think, needs a little bit more of color. I will do a glaze. This one here is also like this. Zooming out and looking at the painting from the distance, this is the best way, especially with shiny parts, to look at and see if something is required. As I zoomed out, I noticed that this piece is way too light, and I'm going over it. It shouldn't be so light. And everything else looks good. More lines I would like to add here to get this feeling of roundness. More layers can be added to this painting. It's up to you how far you would like to go. It's up to you how much you would like to put effort and push yourself with this painting. I'm really happy with the result already, how it looks. It has this chocolate feeling, adding final details here and there, making some lines straighter, crisper. Stepping aside and looking at your work from the distance is a must. You can even take a photo and look it from the photo. It will look differently. It's strange, but it does look differently. Enhancing this line here with a little tail. Just final details here and there. This drop here, making it even. Adding some additional lines to this drop. Making it more interesting. You can add your artistic liberties to enhance something maybe. I want to add more shadow under this chocolate. Pushed a little bit higher. Well, this is truly a Valentine's Day theme. You can have it framed, placed on right beside your dining table. Maybe you will have a Valentine's Day dinner with friends or with loved ones, family, or you can frame it and send it to someone special, a friend, mother, daughter, father, and they will love it. This is a nice practice for smooth layers, for shiny surface, for different transitions, and just a celebration of beautiful day. Thank you for joining on this tutorial, and see you in next ones.